Okay, good evening. We're up to Yudalit Amid Beis, Masechta Megillah. The Megillah had mentioned there were 48 Nevi'im and 7 Nevi'os. We were going through the 7 Nevi'os, and the last one was Chulda. The last Nevi'ah was Chulda. I think so. That's what some of Nachman. We're going to mention something about Chulda. Since we're discussing Chulda, we're going to mention something about Chulda. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines to the bottom. On your Dalit Amid Beis. Rav Nachman says of Nachman, Chulda mibnei banav shel Yeshua. Chulda was a descendant of Yeshua bin Nun, the famous Yeshua bin Nun, the Talmud Muvak of Moshe Rabbeinu, right? That was Chulda was a descendant. Does anyone have a Gemara for Mendy? Okay, Mendy, here we give you Gemara. Mendy. Ksiv Hacha, it says her name was Ben Charchas. Ukesiv Hasam beTimnas Cheres. Now he's buried in a town called Timnas Cheres, and she was a descendant. We had the pasuk Vayelech Ilkiyahu Hakoyin Va'achima Va'achbar V'Shafan Va'Asiel Chulda Neviah Eishes Shalom Ben Tikva, the wife of Shalom Ben Tikva Ben Charchas, the son of Charchas. Now, I think shot like this in general. It doesn't mean we learned out from here. This is like an allusion to. We allude to it that they knew there was a Messiah that she was a descendant, and we have an allusion to it. The fact that she was from descendant from Ben Charchas and Yeshua's Timnas Cheres. So you have a similarity between the word Charchas and Cheres. Esave, you claim that she was descendant of Yeshua. I'm going to show you she was descendant of somebody else. Ravena Saba, Ravena the elder, Eser of Anna Saba of Nachman, who said she was a descendant of Yeshua. Shmoina Nevi'im, Ve'hem Kahanim, 8 Nevi'im, and they were Kahanim. Yatsu me Rachav Azayna. They came from Rachav Azayna. Again, Rachav was when Kalev and who was it? And Pinchas, Kalev and Pinchas, they went to go ahead and scout out what the story was in Yericho. They came and they went to the house of Rachav, was a well-known zona, and they got the information. She let them out, and she escaped. The Eluhain, who are the 8 Nevi'os that came from Rachav? Nuria 1, Baruch 2, Saraya 3, Achasye 4, Yirmiyah 5, Kilkiyo 6, Chanamel 7, and Shalom is 8. Okay, Shalom is 8. Now notice that these names, the last few names, Mach, Chilkiah, Hanel Shalom, these were all Ben. These were all the sons of these, as we're going to see in a second. And even Chulda was what, a descendant of Rachav. So as opposed to Yeshua, that's the kasha. She was a descendant of Rachav, not Yeshua. Because if Hachet says Ben Tikva, because Fasam is Tikvas Chotashani. So l'chayri, you have a kasha. Was she a descendant of Yeshua, like Rav Nachman says, or Rav Aina Saba said no. In fact, she seemed to be a descendant right of. I think you're asking a question that might be the answer. I think again the assumption being that simultaneously they lived at the same time. So usually when you live at the same time, you can't descend from the same people, except one exception. So after class, Rabbi, I'm gonna give you something for the refrigerator. Okay, so no, he's just showing off that he learned a little Navi. Anyway, says the Gemara.
I went to Mars. No, you lived in Queens. We don't learn that.
Amalei in the Saba, the Imula Pasya Uchma, black boot seems to be anyone calls you a black boot, like seems to be a nice saying. Minei minoch testayim, says of Nachman to Ravena Saba, from me and from you testayim the Shmait. So the Shmait, the sugi will become clear. The Garya, she was Megayer, V'nosvi Yeshua, and she married Yeshua. So therefore, Chulda can be a descendant both of Yeshua and of Rachav. Freitais is Akasha, L'chayr Rachav, she was in the Zion Umais, and there's an Islay Sechayah Kol Neshama, you have to kill them. And for Taisus, it must be that she wasn't from the Zion Umais. It wasn't from the Zion Umais, because if she was, you wouldn't be able to accept the ger from them. You have to kill them. Fred the Gemara and Yeshua, right? Umi havi le'izari le'Yeshua. Did Yeshua have what? Did Yeshua had children? For Ksiv Nun b'no Yeshua b'no, when they give the yichus and they go down all the way from Divrei Yomim, Yeshua, they stop. Yeshua has no descendants. So l'chayra, how can you say that Hulda descended from Yeshua? Says Gemara, Banai loy have. He didn't have any sons, but Benasin Havila, he had daughters. Now, does anyone remember why? I taught it to you. We just had it recently. Yeshua, when they found Yericho, he brings the Oren into the Machna. As a result of the Oren being in the Machna, right, they could not have, it's Gemara in Yavamis. As a result of the Oren being in the Machna, it stopped people from living with their wives. So he was Mavachnan from Piri Revivyo. Mida Kenegin Mida, Yeshua was not Makayim the Mitzvah Piri Revivyo. He only had girls. He had no sons. But these descendants, these Nevi'im came. Now, we have over here the list of the Nevi'im. Bishlema, Inu Mefarshe. We have the names Yirmiyahu, Chanamel, Baruch Usraya. These were Nevi'im. In other words, we know clearly that these were Nevi'im. Yirmiyahu was a Navi, Chanamel was a Navi, Baruch was a Navi, Usraya was a Navi. Because it's Mefurish in the Pasuk that way. El Avasain min Nolan. You counted their fathers, Chilkiah, who was the father of Yirmiyah, Shulam, who was the father of Chanamel, Nuriah, who was the father of Baruch, Umachasiyah, who was the father of Sraya. Minayin Shayu Nevi'im. How do you know they were Nevi'im? And the Gemara Kid Ula, the Amma Ula says Ula, Kol Makim She Shmoi V'Shem Aviv B'Nevi'is V'Yedua Shu Navi Ben Navi. Anytime that there's Nevuah and it says the father's name, you can be ascertained that not only is the son the Navi a Navi, but he's Ben Navi, he's the son of a Navi, father of a son of a Navi. V'Loi Shem Aviv, it doesn't mention his father's name, V'Yedua Shi Navi V'Loi Ben Navi. If they just say his name, it doesn't say his father's name, then he's a Navi and his father's not a name. Along those lines, Shemo b'Shem Iro, they say the name of his name, the name of his city. Mefurish, that openly, B'Yedua Shum Vayasayir. That's not a Chiddush. That's not a Chiddush that it came from that city. But here's the Chiddush. If it says Shem, his Shemo v'Lo Shem Iro, it says his name, but it doesn't say the city he came from. B'Yedua Shum Yishalayim. B'Yedua that what he came from the town of Yerushalayim. Now let me ask you a Gavaldik Kasha, guys. This is the Gavaldik Kasha. I heard this from Bornstein said it over the same person about Chanan Lifshitz. We had a Gemara on Daf Yud on the base. The Gemara said beautifully, said the Gemara that how do you know that I'm going to call Kalashi Tznua Beis Chamia, anyone who's a Kala who is a Tznua Beis Chamia, Zoicha v'yatzim mena malachim v'neviim. They'll be Zoicha to come have malachim v'neviim. Minalan, mitamar. Tamar, what, dresses up and Yehuda sees her. He doesn't recognize her. Not because her face is covered then, because her face was covered when she lived by him. And as a result, she had Malachim. She had what? She had David, the whole descendants of Peretz was the forefather of David. And Nevi'im, and we said that Omutz was what? Yeshai ben Omutz. So we said Nevi'im also descended from him. So why do we see what's the Nakuda to having children out of Nevi'im is Tzrias. Says the Gemara, 8 Nevi'im descended from who? Rachav. And what's the title? Zaina. The exact opposite. It's a Gavaldik Kasha, right? It's a Gavaldik Kasha. The exact opposite. Exact opposite.
Some people say she was.
Yeah, I know Game is Zionist. I know. Yeah, so then why does any person who says her name has Yehurim, right? Because she gave him Zionist.
The fact that she went away.
Anyway, so here's Gavaldik Teretz. We learned in Masechta Yuma, we said in Masechta Yuma that there's different types of tshuva. There's tshuva mitoich yera, there's tshuva mitoich ava. We said we had 2 lashonis. Rish Lakish says, if you do tshuva me'ava, your zedonis not only becomes shkagos, they said one more step. Your zedonis becomes schuyos. Your zedonis becomes schuyos. Memela, she had a lot of tznius behind her. She was the most famous zayin in the history of the world, right? And now she's doing tshuva me'ava. So it's a Gavaldik Teretz, right? All her averis now become what? They become zechuyos. They become meritorious things for her. The Mela, she was like, right? It's consistent. Her tznius was outstanding to the point that she had 8 nevi'im sent from her. So it's Gavaldik Kasha and even better Teretz. It's some seif is a Teretz. It's some seif is Nakuda, that the zechuyos, anything you do, if you eat, can you imagine a person eats shrimp, eats tarfis, and he does tshuva ma'ava, then that becomes like mamash korban Pesach. whatever he did. It's unbelievable, the Kuda, how Kadosh Baruch Hu is so wonderful and so accepting of tshuva. Says the Gemara Vaita. This b'masnitan tana, in the Tosefta we learned, kol shemaisav umaisa avoisav stumim. Anyone whose actions and the maisav of his father's stumim, it doesn't say anything in the pasuk, right? In particular about the father. And then one of them, the Torah says a name of a person that's roy l'shvach, that's roy to be praised. Kigoyin, for example, Devar Hashem Shahoya al Tzfanya ben Kushi ben Gedalia. Now, it doesn't say anything about them, but it says Tzfanya. Now we know Tzfanya was one of the Nevi'im, so we can ascertain Tzfanya was a Navi. Then B'Yeduah Shu Tzadik ben Tzadik. And in other words, it doesn't say anything. It just mentions Tzfanya. So Avli Kushi was a Tzadik, and right. And the Kol Shepar L'cha Kosa Be'ech Mihem L'Genai. If the Torah goes ahead and explains something, the Genai Kigoyin, Vayi B'Chodesh Hashvi, and it was on the Chodesh Hashvi, it was on Rosh Hashanah. Bo Yishmael ben Nisanya ben Alishama. Now, Nisanya ben Alishama, Rashi brings, is the assassin that killed Gedalia. Gedalia ben Achikam was assassinated on Rosh Hashanah. We have a. It's a nitcha. It's a nitcha. We keep it the next day. But Gedalia ben Achikam was assassinated by Yishmael ben Nisanya. So guess what? Yishmael was Nishkan Tzaddik, and guess what? The Sanya also was not a tzaddik. That's the nakud over here, that we mention a person, and that person in particular was not a good guy. Then you can assume that his father was not a good guy as well. B'Yidusha Rasha ben Rasha, he was the son of a Rasha. Okay, Amra, getting back to Megillah a little bit. Again, in the middle of a digression, but getting back to the Megillah a little bit. Amra of Nachman, Malachi, the Navi Malachi, Zechariah and Malachi, said Mordechai. In fact, Malachi was not a person named Malachi. He was in fact Mordechai. Malachi, why was it called Malachi? Shoya Mishnah Lemelech, because he was what? The second in charge to Achashverosh. He took the place what of Haman. So therefore he was Malachi. He was like Malachi, he was like a king. Mesiveh, we asked the following question: How could you, Rav Nachman, say that Malachi and Mordechai are synonymous, that they're the same person? I'm going to show you them a brisa, and they're both mentioned separately. So if they're mentioned separately, I mean, they can't be the same individual. It says Baruch ben Nuriah, Usroya ben Masaya, or my brother says Machsaya, V'Daniel or Mordechai Bilshon, V'Chagai, Zechariah, Umalache. Guys, there's your problem. You said Mordechai Bilshon because he spoke every lashon, right? And then it says Malachi. So you see that what? They're two separate people. Kulon nisnavnu b'shnas shtayim. They all were nisnave in the Yavish. They were all in the second year of the Malchus of the Yavish. The Yavish, the Persian. There was two Yavish. There's one the Madai. This was the second one. So what do you see from here? You see from here that Malachi and Mordechai were two separate individuals. Says the Gemara Tiyufta, in fact, right? That's an upshlag. They're two separate individuals. Tanya, Amar B'Shua ben Karcha, Malachi is Ezra. In fact, Malachi was not Mordechai, but Malachi was Ezra. Malachi, no, he was Malachi. Malachi was Malachi. It wasn't an AKA. He wasn't a Mechuna. He was Malachi. He wasn't Ezra. Amar Nachma Yitzchak Mistaber Command Yoma Malachi is Ezra. Despite that, despite what you would think, in fact, what it's Mistaber to say that what he was Ezra. Why? It says in Malachi Beis Pasuk Gid Aleph. Bagda Yeshua, Bagda Yehuda. Yehuda was treacherous. They rebelled. They did a tayev, an abomination in Yisrael. Ubi Yishalayim ki chilel Yehuda kodesh Hashem asher ohev uboal bas el necha. They intermarried. Boal bas el necha. They intermarried. Now, uman efresh nashim nechriyos. Who was the Navi who was responsible for going up and separating them? It was none other than Ezra. Ksiv, it says in Ezra Yud, Vayan Shechanya ben Yechiel, the Bnei Elam, Vayomer leEzra, Anachnu ma'alnu be'Elokeinu, we desecrated HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'noisei nashim nachriyos. So the fact that Malachi is giving Musa for that, in fact, Ezra is the one who went ahead and separated them from that, we could ascertain that they were the same individual because it was the same tkufa. Tan Rabbanan, Arbo Nashim, there were four beautiful women in the world. And who are they? Sarah, Rachav, Abigail. Okay, Sarah we all know, Rachav we know now. Abigail we met yesterday, right? That was the wife of Novel who married David, the Esther. Ulamandama Esther Yirak Rakais Haisa. And the Madhyamid that says Esther was green, we said Esther was like a myrtle. She was like a das. She was called Adasa because she was green. So she was jaundice, right? Mafik Esther, go ahead, take Esther out. Uma ayel Vashti and put Vashti in. Okay, now says Taisus. Let's see Taisus, guys. Fascinating Taisus. Arba Nashim Yafiyas Hain Ba'olam Kasha. Amayla Chashav Chava. Why do we consider Chava? The Amrina and the Perek Cheskas Habatim and Baba Basra, the third Perek. Sarah Lefnei Chava. Sarah, when compared to Chava, Kikaif Binik Kipirei Adam, was like a monkey to a person. Baruch. Now, so Mamish, you see, if Sarah was so beautiful, she was like nothing compared to Chava. Beautiful. Teres ve'ishleimar. We're only considering people who were born naturally, not people who were created. But so it's fascinating why Chava, in fact, was the most. Listen, Chava had been the most beautiful woman in the history of the world. Adam had to be, listen, God's not going to, who's God? Baruch Shalom is creating somebody. He's not creating someone who has to diet.
God doesn't make junk.
God doesn't make junk. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so it's there's 4 Yafiyas in the world, right? Tanarabanan. Rachav b'shma zinsa. Rachav, anyone who mentioned her name, it caused the time for his nus. Yal b'koila, anyone who heard her voice. Avigail b'sichirasa, anyone who thought about her. And Micha b'shal b'riyasa, Micha b'shal, also anyone who would seen her. Amr Yitzah, Kolim Rachav Rachav miyad nikra. Anyone said Rachav Rachav would see Kerry. Amalei of Nachman. I know Amina. We had this Gemara in Tainus. I know Amina Rachav Rachav leichbasli. Nothing happened to me. Amalei ki kamina biyoida b'makira. When do we say that as someone who knew her and recognized her? Says the Gemara. Umordechai Yoda, back to the Megillah. Umordechai Yoda is kolasha nase v'yetzi b'soicha ir v'yizak se'oka gedoylu mara. He went out to the city and he was crying a bitter cry. Man Amar Mordechai, what did he say when he was screaming, when he was crying out? Rav Amar Gava Ham Me'achashverosh. The riches of Haman is even higher than Achashverosh, right? That he wants to go ahead and Goizel Hashmir Laharig Labes Kol Yehudim, right? And that never entered the mind of the Rosh Achashverosh. Achashverosh is kind tzaddik. He knew he was this kind tzaddik, but Gava Haman, Haman came up with the final solution, right? So therefore, that's what he was. The tzaka was. Shmuel Amar, what was the tzaka? Gava Malka Eloi Mi Malka Tatoi. That the Melech Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed what the Melech the Tachtoin, right? Sagino that Kaviyachol that Achashverosh could be over on the Ratzon of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Anyway, Esther hears Mordechai's cry. But the Schalkal Amalkam Oich, she was very distressed. My fat the Schalkal Omarav Shapir Sanida. She was pierced nida. She was pierced nida. She got scared. She was pierced nida. Rav Yirmi Amar shel hutzrich lenakveha. She mamish had to go to the bathroom. I just came to mind that Vilna Goyim. Why did she invite both of them to the party? Why did she invite both Achashverosh and Haman to the party? The Gemara tells us that if a woman who's a nida walks between 2 men, she'll kill one of them. So we see over here like the opinion about the Schalkal Hamalka, that she was a nida, she figured she brought the party, she'll at least get one of them, right? So that's a fascinating Vilna Gaon to go ahead and sushtel to this. But Tikra Esther lahasach, Esther called the hasach to a person called hasach. Amarav, who is hasach? Hasach said the Niel. This is hasach, that's the Niel. And why was he called hasach? So, because why? He was cut down from what? His position of prominence. Again, he was already in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel, then by what's his name?
Avil Merodach.
Avil Merodach, and then Belshazzar, and obviously now he's still around by the kings of the Paras and Madai, but no longer did he have his prominent position, so therefore he had cut down. Shmuel says no. Shekol divrei malchus nechtachim al piv. Still, he was in the position of prominence, and all divrei malchus was decided. The play on words of hasach, the hey and the interchangeable, right? The hasach was what was decided through his mouth. But Esther goes ahead and calls out tzach, and she goes ahead and commands him to tell Mordechai, "L'das mazel mazeh." Want to know what's going on? Rabbi Yitzchak Sholch Esther sent to Mordechai, Shema Avu Yisrael HaChamishacham Sheitayra. Maybe Kal Yisrael was over on the Chamishacham Sheitayra. Yechsiv behen that it says regarding them, Mizel, and Ksuvim. We said it's on both sides. The play on words being Mizel v'Alzev, like we know that the Luchais were written up Mizel Mazeh. Vayigidul Mordechai Estevei Esther. That she doesn't want to go into the king to be Mevakesh because maybe Achashverosh will kill her. And the Ilu, let us say the Ilu Ihu loy Oslo Legabei Hasach does not go because it says that Vayagidu LeMordechai Estevei Esther Vayagidu they told not Hasach Mikan Sheim Shibin Al HaKalkala over here you don't send the shliach right person with bad news. She layach the shliach to send and he didn't want to go to bring this kalkala this bad news. Anyway, Esther says to Mordechai, Lech Kona says Kol HaYehudim Hamimtzoim B'Shushan B'Tzoim Yolai U'B'Cheinov El HaMelech HaShaloi Kedos. Now, what is HaShaloi Kedos? Rav Abba Shaloi Kedos, right? Which was not the Das Torah. Why? Shebechol Yom V'Yom Ad Achshav B'Oinus. Until now, when I was Achashverosh, it was an Oinus. V'Achshav B'Ratzon, but now I go, it's going to be what? B'Ratzon. U'Kasher Avadati, and I'll be lost to you. Kashem Shavadati Miveis Abba. Just like I'll be lost to my father's house, no longer will I be able to live with you anymore because I will be with Achashverosh willingly. Taisus yes, Gavaldig Kasha, guys. Okay? Again, so he's saying that now from this on, the status is going to be different. And that's why I answered Heshi the other day. That's why the Daryavish will come from this union. Right? The question was that she was Mishamesh b'Moich, or she was Mishamesh with a shade. We said from this point on, she's with Achashverosh and only Achashverosh. No longer will she be with Mordechai. That's it. Freg Tois Akasha. Kashem Shavartim Beis Avi Kach Avartim B'cha Vim Toimar Amaylo Hoyem Migarsha V'tei Muteres Lachzirena. Halachically, you have a very, very good what? If Mordechai would divorce her, and then she's with Achashverosh, then when the dust settles, she can go back to him. So why kasher avadati? Why did she have to be lost to Achashverosh because she was another man? If she would have been divorced, she wasn't an Eishes Ish. It wouldn't be asla bal asla boil. And there, you had a good eitzah. It wasn't practical. The fisher kol maisa get who al pi edim. A maisa get has to be al yudei edim. V'hoyu yorei, and she was scared. Again, can you imagine? Mordechai would have been deader than dead had he found out that Achashverosh found out the truth. So you have a get with Adim. It's people are going to find out.
He wasn't worried before that he was living with her?
Obviously not. Obviously, he was able to go ahead. Obviously, they was able to do that.
He had 1-8 already.
Right? Who?
That is 1-8.
Again, I'll tell you a better kasha. I'll tell you a better kasha. What Gemara says? What?
That if when a get is written, the cold goes out, right? Is it right?
No, it's star with Adim because of Adim written on the star.
Right, but that
Not right because of Adim written on the star.
right. So it can't be.
So Adim written on the star.
Because the Mice is teaching us that there's no such thing as a person holding a secret. Because the cold goes out, because they ate them. He said that
Again, it's not an eitzah, right? Okay, you got it. Okay, so now there's a better kasha. There's a lumdus over here. The Rishonim asked the following question. There's a Gemara, it's in Gittin, I think it's the Pevav. The Gemara says that the one who writes the get, right, he's believed as an Eid Echad. So it's possible to go ahead and have this done in a very clandestine manner. Okay, that's just to whet your appetite. Again, you see the rest yourselves. But again, it's just the kasha is a very, very good kasha. Should be aware of a good kasha. We should go weiter. Let's go. Anyway, so Vayava Mordechai, I said we're going on. Vayava Mordechai, and it says Mordechai goes Vayas Kol Eshet Visa Alav. Esther did everything that Esther told him for 3 days. They fasted. The lashon Vayava is a funny lashon. Amarav Shehever Yom Rishon Shel Pesach B'Tainis. Yom Rishon was Pesach was B'Tainis. Ushmul Amar Da'avar Akuma Demaya. He passed over a body of water. So guys, Gavali Kasha. Can you fast on Yontif of Tainis Sibur? I don't know. Well, maybe it's maybe right. But how can you mevatel the mitzvah of matzah? Why not the mitzvah of matzah? So listen to alumnus. Listen to alumnus that we learned. We learned alumnus, guys. What's the share by Yom Kippur of Achila? Incorrect. What's the share of by Yom Kippur? Yuma, guys, the last parak in Yuma.
Kaisevis.
A kaiseves. A kaiseves is a date, right? Why? Because the mitzvah is not to eat. The mitzvah is inui. The mitzvah is to pain yourself, right? We spoke about in Sech Yuma. You're supposed to be in pain. And a kazayas, you'll still be in pain if you eat a kazayas. On the other hand, if you eat a kaiseves, you won't plan anymore. So it's beautiful teretz. They could have, when it said the mitzvah here was inui, the mitzvah wasn't, the mitzvah was ana. So the mitzvah was up to the share of kaiseves. But they could have eaten what? A kazayas matzah and been yotze the mitzvah. They could have been yotze. Notice that he Paka said this halacha. You could be yotze the mitzvah of matzah by eating a kazayas matzah, which is the halacha, and still go ahead and be me'inoi because you didn't get to the share of a kaiseves. Weiter. By hiba yom hashlishi by tilba es malchus. What do you mean she dressed now? We had this the other day. Big day malchus it should be that she put on the royal garments. Rabbi Chanina Malamed shelavashta ruach hakodesh. She said the ruach hakodesh was shayur and Esther that she'd go for this mission. It says Veruach Lovsha es Amasai. So you see the lashon of a tilbash and Lovsha by Amasai was a navi memela. So now we have a bunch of statements, a digression of different things that Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Chanina say. Again, the common thread in anything. These are all in places in Shas where Allah said something in the Rabbi Chanina. The bracha of a regular guy should be easy in your eyes. Don't take any bracha for granted. Shari shnei gedoli adar, birchum shnei hedaytis. Two regular Joes went ahead and they mavarach two gedoli olam. In the sky man, the bracha was fulfilled. The Elu Hain, who the gedoli adar is David v'Daniel, and David the Borche Aravna. David bought the threshing floor of Aravna Yevusi, and that was the place of the Beis Hamikdash. So Ravna goes ahead and he benches David. He says, "Vayomer Ravna el Hamelach, Hashem Elokecha yirtzecha. Hakadosh Baruch Hu will find you accepting." And the bracha was fulfilled. It says what? He davened to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and the Magefa stopped. The Neil, right, the Navi is describing there was Magefa made David. He found the Malach Mashkes standing on the threshing floor of Ravna Yevusi, and he benched him, and the Magefa stopped. And he realized that the mouth was showing in the place of the Makam Hamikdash. Or Makam HaMizbeach, depends on the Gerson, the Rambam. Daniel, it says Daniel the Barchi da Yavish. He got a bracha from the Yavish, the Chsiv, Elohoch. This is before he's thrown into the lion's den. So this is the Yavish Hamadai. This is the first Yavish. Elohoch the Ant Pulach Lei, the God that you serve, B'Tadira all the time. Hu Yeshiv Nachil Go Edmad. And he'll save you. And the bracha was Mekuyim, he was saved from the lions. Just as the bracha of a hedyot should be calling in the eyes, the klala of a hedyot should not be calling in the eyes, the curse of a hedyot. Avimelech killed Sarah, Avimelech cursed Sarah. After he had taken her, not really knowing she was an Ashes Ish, he said, he gave her a bribe, he gave her money, he said, this should be a covering for your eyes. And the sky in Bizarre, it says by Yitzchak, by Yitzchak and Yitzchak, but the chena einoid and his eyes became dim. He was not able to see. Again, another statement from Rabbi Chanina. Boy, Reish like me this Hakadosh Baruch Hu me this passive dam. Me this passive dam other shy faced kadera. Achkach nice in the teichamayim. First you put the pot in the fire, then you put the water inside the pot. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is the opposite. First he puts the water and then he puts the clouds. First who nice in mayim v'achkach shayfa hakadera l'kaim hashnemar l'kol titain hamoin mayim b'samim. Vayala Nesiyim. The pasuk says Vayala Nesiyim, the cloud should come up. So first the water's there, and then the clouds come up. That's what Bereishis Kim Shemayim Ves Aretz. The Kodesh Baruch was consistent. First the Shemayim, then the Aretz. Anyone who says a David b'Shem Mamro, maybe Gula La'ilam, brings Gula to the world. If you say something in the name of, now this is the Rabbi Allah in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Kolayim David b'Shem Mamro, maybe Gula Shnamar, but Taimer Esther Melech b'Shem Mordechai. Esther said to the Melech in the name of Mordechai. Tzaddik Avad, a tzaddik is lost when he dies. L'doiroi avad. It's a loss for his generation, but the tzaddik is not avad, because mashal adam sha'av the loy margolius. A person loses a margolis, he loses a pearl. Kol makom shehi margolis shma, wherever it is, it's a pearl. It's not in your. It's a pearl wherever it is. However, it's only lost to the Baal. So, guys, listen to this correlation. Just like a pearl is lost from the owner, and wherever it is, it's a pearl. The owner doesn't have it. So too, that tzaddik is lost from his generation, from his dar, from his generation, and wherever he is, he's a tzaddik. But the generation, it goes on. That's his tushtel. Now, it's not really a great tushtel. The pearl does not. When the tzaddik loses, his generation loses. The pearl is lost, but this you didn't gain from the pearl's a pearl. The tzaddik, when he's in the world, is mashpia on everyone. His Torah is spread to everyone. So when he's not there, so don't compare him to a pearl, which is just an inanimate object. A living, breathing Torah is lost. So how's the tushtel? So it's a beautiful marsha, guys. The statement before Reb Chanina that said really is a Mishnah Navais. The Mishnah Navais says anyone that says Dav B'Shem brings Gula L'Olam. So what's he adding to the Mishnah? Says the Marsha to answer that question. Since the tzaddik's no longer in the dar, but people will be saying Torah over B'Shem Amrai, therefore he's there. And there's again, it's a big kasha. What's the comparison between a pearl and a tzaddik? The pearl is a domain; he's silent. The tzaddik's not there to say over his Torah. And so the second chazal of Rabbi Chanina is to explain what the first chazal is telling me that I need from the Mishnah Navais. It's telling me that in a situation where the tzaddik's not there, when you say double Shem Oimrai, so therefore now it's compared to a pearl. Because why? Because you still have the ongoing Torah of the tzaddik, because people are saying dava b'Shem Oimrai. That's the way Marsha explains the two chazal together.
This was different. She said Shem Mordechai had nothing to do with Shem Mordechai. She said it because that was she needed Mordechai to do it, right? Esther needed Mordechai to know that. I'm sure she know that Mordechai that it was that Mordechai heard it, right?
But again, he said, yeah. Says now, what v'chol ze inenu shavali v'chol eser niroyas Mordechai Yehudi Yoshev b'Shar Melech. That's the pasuk of Haman. Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Chanina b'shah shera Haman es Mordechai Yoshev b'Shar Melech. Amar kol ze inenu shavali. All my money, guys. The Gemara in Chelek and Sanhedrin says Haman was the two richest people in the history of the world. Haman and Kairach, two richest. He had kids. We're going to see how many kids he had. He had mega kids, but he had to be rich to support all those kids. And he's like, he is amazing. And he says it's not worth it. Just because he saw Mordechai there not bowing down to him. Mordechai came with Pizboili. He had a Pizboili. Okay, this is very nister. What exactly is going on over here? Rashi just simply says that the lashon of Pizbuli is a lashon of what? A taina of Ashiris, and Haman had a taina of Oni, a taina of poverty. So in order to understand exactly what's going on over here, we have to see the following. Let's see.
Is that what the blood, the dam?
No.
Okay, so if you look on your phone, guys, I sent something out on your phone. Here's this is found in I quoted, this is from the Yalkut Shemaini. In Taf Reish and Vav, it's the Yalkut Shemaini. So, Rav Chisda, Dam Rav Chisda, Zeh boy b'prizbaili, v'zeh ba b'prizbuti. This one's coming with his, what does that mean? Pamachas nasan and melech mamin, the melech gave money, v'shargam b'rashi agaisus, lichvishas ha-medina, and they sent it to the head of the army to capture the Medina. Natal Haman mamin, Haman took the money, shaloi, he got whatever money was given to him, v'yachlai, and he ate it up. He had nothing. He didn't have nothing to go ahead and give them. He still had half of his money. Lend me the money that's in your hand. I won't lend you. Elam kain timachan nafshecha la'avidli. Unless you sell yourself as a servant to me. Kibul al nafshay. So Haman accepted that. And then Mordechai lent him the money. Because of loy, Hare Haman avdoi shel Mordechai. What Zav nafshay le Mordechai. Betulmo denama. He sold his nefesh to Mordechai for some bread. And Hainu damalei Mordechai leHaman. Avda the koni nichse. Avda the man nichse the man. If who does it belong to? Does it belong to the master? Does it belong to the master, or does it belong to the eved? So this one's coming with his star of Ashiris, meaning you owe me. This one's coming by Nias, you're an eved to me. That's why he hated him. This again a subplot that's not so well known, right? But that's the Chazal. That quote is from the quote of the Chazal. Amra Papa, the Korli Avdin Mistavim B'Talmi. It was called the eved that sold his soul for what, some bread. He had all his he carried with him all his cheshbonis, all his business receipts and everything, and all his bank accounts, everything he had tattooed on him. All this again, right at the end of Tainus, we said they're going to be sitting in a circle and pointing out, Zeh Keli. This is my Zeh Lashon pointing. So Zeh, and that is mashmas there now. In the future, Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to have what? It's going to be a head called tzaddik with tzaddik. Shnemar. But yomu yeh by tzvokos la teres tzvi uletzifiras teferes l'shar amay. Very ambiguous statement. Maila teres tzvi uletzifiras teferes. What does that mean? Those people do Hashem's will, and they wait for His glory. They're going to get a Torah. I think everyone gets a Torah. The Shor Amoy, Lemisha Mesim Atzma Kishraim. Only people who are humble to make the Shalom Shirayim will be zayich to the special Torah. Now the pasuk says, "Uleruach lemishpat yoshev al mishpat legvura uleruach mishpat." The rest of the pasuk in Yirmiyah, "Uleruach mishpat yoshev al mishpat legvura mishivim melchama sha'ara." So with dashing the pasuk, "Uleruach mishpat." The people who are shayfin on their right, they rule over their spirit. That's a person who's able to go ahead and do tshuva. What does that mean? That's adon din emes lamita, a dying that judges emes lamita. And the pasuk says l'gvura zeh hamiskabla yitzur, a person who overcomes his yitzhara. Meshivim milchama. This is Talmidei Chachamim shenoisim v'noisim v'milchamtei shel Torah. They busy themselves learning in the milchemes of Torah. Shara, El Talmidei Chachamim shemaskimu marivim batiknisias batimidrashias. These are the ones who get up early in the morning and leave late. The shar find the shar of the Beis Medrash. So the pasuk l'ruach mishpat l'yoshval mishpat l'gvur mishichne milchama is speaking about allusion to Talmidei Chachamim and the schar of people who learn Torah. Says the pasuk v'gam ela b'yayin shagu u'b'sheicha ta'u. This is also the continuation of that pasuk. Paku plila amra midas adin l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rebbeinu Shloim. Manishtanu elu me'elu. What's the difference? Dumas oilam Klal Yisrael. Why are Bnei Yisrael zeicha to this Torah and they're not? Look in the beginning of Sechna Sanhet Avodah Zarah. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yisrael asku bit Torah. Yisrael are busy in learning Torah, and the Umas oilam la yasku bit Torah. They're not being geisig in Torah. Some like midas adin will say gam ela b'yayin shagu. Also, Bnei Yisrael, they're shagu b'yayin, u'b'sheicha ta'u, by drinking, and paku plilim, and then nishpat, they will be judged in Gehenna. Okay. Anyway, it says, Abigail tells David, don't take me. He had a time for Abigail. He said, this should not be for you, lefuka, mashen kain, Batsheva was. Okay, back to the program. Esther gets a ruach hakodesh. She's standing bechatze beis hamelech hapnimius. Rav Levi says Rav Levi, right? Bekivin shegiel lebeis hatzlamim. Once she got to the house of Avodah Zarah Achashverosh, the stalki men shechina, the ruach hakodesh that had been shoyra over her had now left. So Amar, she said, Keli lama azaftani. Again, Tehillim Chav Beis is Ayelet HaShachar. It's an allusion to Esther, and she davens to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Kodesh Baruch Hu, why have you forsaken me? Shema atadon al shoygeg. Perhaps you're being done al shoygeg kimezid. The al the al ba'oinis, right? Kiratzin, pirish. Maybe because I was with Achashverosh, right? But l'chayra, how can you judge a person as oinis or a shaygeg? And I was. I shema al maybe I lost my ruach hakodesh al shekarasav kelev. I called him a dog. So interesting to know that I think the sign of Parasamada is a dog. I think so. I just think so. That was there was a dog in the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. She had a dog next to her. Yeah. So it says Hashem al shekarasav kelev. Maybe I called him a dog. Shenemar hatzila mecherev nafshi miyad kelev yichidasi. And so therefore that's the pasuk there in Tehillim, and he said kelev. Chazor karatash aryeh. Shenemar, it says there the same. It says pasuk of Beis. Save me from what? From the mouth of the lion. So in other words, therefore, she thought maybe that she did something wrong. She said, I was loinus, shoygeg. I lost it maybe because I called him a kelev. He called him an ari. When you saw Esther Malka, Esther had 3 malachim that came to help her. Again, Esther had been fasting for 3 days. I guarantee you she's not looks so geschmack. She was probably stoop over, so the malach came to lift her up ahead to give her a little stature. One that she should find favor in the eyes of the king, and echad shemosach es hasharvit, one to go ahead. He didn't want to lift up the scepter. That go ahead and lift up the scepter that that stick out for her to accept. The kama, how long did the scepter grow? Rav Yirmiyah shtei amos, 2 amos. The hemidu al shtei maseh, it was 2 amos, and they stepped into 12. Bimilo al shesh esrei 16. Bimilo esrei amos 24. Bimasnita Tan and Bryce we learned al shishim 60. Bechina tamoitze ba'amo shel basparo, the famous arm of Bisya basparo that stretched out and got Moshe. But it says vatishlach es amos vatikocheha. Bechina tamoitze b'shine rishoyim. You find by the teeth of rishoyim. Yichsiv shine rishoyim shibarta. So Maisa, not so well known, that Og Melech HaBashan came to go ahead and take a mountain. He was going to throw it down upon the Klal Yisrael. So Hashem made a bunch of ants come. The mountain fell on his head, and he wanted to take it off. His teeth grew out, and he couldn't lift it up. Moshe came and hit him in his ankle, and killed him. Okay. V'omrei shlokish al tikri shibarta. Don't say shibarta broke. Ella sherivafta, that it grew. Rabbi bar Ephraim, Rabbi of Ephraim, Amar Mishum of Loza, sheshomem me rabbi l'masayim, that the scepter grew mamish to 200 amas. Again, tremendous long distance. Vayomula melech malacha esna malkes. What is it? What do you want? Whatever. What's your request? Adchatzia malchus it should be done. So adchatzia malchus v'loyal kol malchus. If you ask for half the malchus, you'll get it, but not the whole malchus. Not something that would divide the malchus. Man, what would divide the malchus is binyan beis hamikdash. It seemed in the middle of his Medina. Eretz Yisrael was right in the middle. If I give you the beis hamikdash, it would go ahead and it would split in 2. So what did Esther say? She invited Yavai Melech Muhammad. Elamishte should come to a party. Tan Rabbanan. Maros Esther shezibna es Haman. What did Esther see to go ahead and invite Haman? What was the plan? She was setting a trap for him. She did to them for a trap. A bunch of reasons, guys. She heard from their father's house, right? She heard from a father's house. If you look at Rashi on the right side, she heard the Tinoikis say this in father's house. The person goes ahead and hates someone, give them to eat and drink, and no longer they'll hate them. So that's what she learned, to go ahead and give them to eat and drink. So that was the reason for the party. Rabbi says, in order that what he should not take an Eitzah Achashverosh, would go ahead and that he should not go ahead and be that Haman. What's the shot over here? Rashi b'melech shehoiseh she'asay mitzaleches. In other words, she thought that the light was shining on Haman, so he's scared that that she invited Haman. Achashverosh should be there. That Haman should influence Achashverosh. I guess that since there was such a serendipitous time for him, that he shouldn't go ahead and get Achashverosh. He should listen to her and not Haman. If what?
The Haman's gonna rebel, say he's gonna take over the king.
In other words, that she invited Haman to make sure that he wouldn't take over the kingdom. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kadesh Yakiru ba shehi Yehudis, that they shouldn't recognize that she's a Jew. Rabbi Chemia Aimer Kadesh Shlanu beBeis HaMelech v'Yisichu Daitan min Rachamim. We have an inn in the kingdom, and she's not thinking about us. Rabbi Yisrael again, an unbelievable amount of reasons, both by Amoroyim and Tanoyim. Rabbi Yisrael Aimer Kadesh Matzu Loi B'Chaleis. It's that Haman should be in front of Achashverosh all the time, that she can find an opening to possibly go ahead and trick him. Perhaps the Kodesh Baruch Hu will realize that if she brings the Sani Yisrael so close, that she'll go ahead and she'll show what, like maybe she'll wink at Haman, maybe she'll make Achashverosh jealous, that they should both get killed. Maybe that again, she's willing to die to save. What Rashi brings, what we had the Gemara. Once one person dies, the Gezer is batal. One person dies by the Romans, right? We had it by the Romans that once one of them dies. Remember, the person said, "If I throw myself in," that's what he did. He, well, I get to Elam Haba, and he jumped in the fire. We had this in Tainus. So that was this thing over here that if Haman gets killed, the Gezer will be batal. Melech hafachfan. He was a hafachfan. He was wishy-washy. Achashverosh is a wishy-washy guy, and maybe the chances what she has a chance to go ahead. What Rashi says, maybe we change his mind. Maybe I can entice him to kill Haman. If he's not there, maybe it's at this time I can convince him, and maybe he'll kill Haman. We still know the words of Rav Lazar. She wanted to go ahead to make him out, make him jealous. She wanted to make the Sarim jealous. They want to make everyone jealous. Rabbi says a different reason. It says the Fnei Shever Goin. Because why? There is money to the Russia, it causes them to have Gedula. Pride comes before fall. So this guy, in other words, she wanted Haman to feel very prideful, and as a result of him feeling this pride, he'll fall down because he's going to feel pride that he was invited to the party. In other words, they're going to get thirsty and they're going to drink a lot. And we know Balshat says the result got killed. Maybe it'll be so. Ashkei Rabbi Baravu Eliyahu Novi Amalei. He asked him, "Kiman Chazi Esta of the Hachi." What she do? You just had a plethora of reasons. So Amalei Eliyahu said, "Kikulu Tanoi uKikulu Amaroi." He said, like all of them, they're all of the above, all of the above. In other words, right? Esther was leaving no stone unturned. Haman is covered. Haman spoke about his wealth and how many children he had. The Kamaroiv Banov. How many children did he have? Amarav Shleishim. They had 30. Asara Mesu. 10 had died normally. Vasaru Nitlu. 10 were hung. Vyasara Machsir Psachim, and 10 go from door to door. Rabbanan Amru. Oisin Shemachsir Psachim Shivim Havit. It was 70 that went door to door. Those are that who are satiated belechem, they niskaru al tikrei seveim elishivim. Those who were seveim belechem, in other words, that once upon a time they had money, but now there's nothing. For Rabbi Bar Chama Amar Kulan Masayim Ushmayna Havit. He had 208 sons. Shenemar for Roiv Banov, and the gematria of Roiv is what 208. For the Gemara, Rav gematria the same Rabbi Bisan Havi is 214. Reish is 200, right, and 6. It's 2. Actually, it's 212, right? 6. Oh, Viroiv. Oh, so Amarav Nachman Yitzchak Viroiv. It's Viroiv. It's what? It's written Chaser. So it's only 208. So I heard a great shot, guys. Why didn't they kill all the kids of Haman? Why going door to door, right? And Haman and how do you have so many kids? So obviously it wasn't from one woman. It says Haman was a tremendous naif, but this is the Ben Yehoyada. It says Adam was a tremendous naif. He's a tremendous adulterer, and he had kids all over the place, right? He had kids all over the place. And when it became known that they were his children, so what happened? The family threw them out, and therefore they had to go what? Door to door. And that's why they ended up going door to door.
Anyway, right?
I don't know. V'laylahu yinodar shnas hamelech, omer av tanchum, nodar shnas malka shaloylam, Kodesh Baruch Hu couldn't sleep, kaviyachol. He's going to save Klal Yisrael. Rabbanon amri nodar el yoinem nodar tachtoinim. Right, so what happened over here? Rav Amar shnas hamelech achshverish mamish, he couldn't sleep. The naflo lei milsa b'daite, something entered his mind. He was thinking about this party. V'amar, mai de kamon de zimnei Esther lahaman. What's this all of a sudden? Esther invites Haman to a party. Dilma eitzu koshakli ilavei, who gavra lemikle. Maybe they're plotting to kill this gavra himself. Hada Omar, they talk about paranoia. Yehachi, lehavi gavra the rachli the havi modaloi. One someone have rachmanis and tell me about their plan. Hada Omar, 1 second. Dilma ikke inish the avad bitivusa. Maybe there was a person that I did something good to. V'lei parati and I didn't pay up. Omshem hachi the money inish v'lei megalali. Therefore, what? Since I didn't pay up, I didn't help him out. The person's not helping me out. So miyad, what does it happen? He wanted to see if there's any person that what he hadn't done chesed to. It says Vayi Nikroim. They were reading it Malamed Nikroim Aleim. It read by itself. In other words, you don't have to read it. It read by itself. It says Vayi Motze Ksuv. It says Vayi Motze Ksav Mi Boile. What do you mean Vayi Motze Kosav? And was found Kosav. Kosav Mi Boile, not Kosav written Kosav. Malamed. There was a person. Shimshai. This guy was a Russian Marusha. He was a Russian Marusha from the old school. And Rashi says, Seifa Amelach Soini Yisrael Haya. Mamish says Soini Yisrael, an anti-Semite. When Yemois Kairish Haya, he's already from Kairish the Great. He was from before Achashverosh. Kamashinema B'Sefer Ezra Shekosev Sitna Al Binyan Bias. He was the one who told Kairish not to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. So this was an old-time anti-Semite, and he was erasing what it said regarding Mordechai, that he had saved him from Bixen and Sherish. Mochik and Gavriel came along to Gavriel v'Kaisev, and Gavriel went ahead. Kasav means written. Kaisev means, guys, Kaisev is present, writing. That it was constantly being what? It's being written. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.